Bye! My name is Josh Miller. I own Riverstone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our Duck Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home. Welcome back once again to another episode of Duck Dogs, everybody. I am your host, Josh Miller. And before we get going, we need to make sure we thank our wonderful partners that make this show possible. First and foremost, thank you to Eukanuba. Eukanuba Premium Performance Sport 3020 is the blend of food that I feed my dogs, my personal dogs, and the dogs here at the kennel, especially as we head into that heavy training season. Cannot say enough good things about the company, about the food, about the performance of the dogs, about the recovery of the dogs. Just fantastic food. www.eukanuba.com. Also, thank you to Sitka Gear. Sitka Gear is your premium option for outdoor clothing as we head into the training season. Make sure to check out the everyday wear. You can stay in the field and be training more comfortably for longer. www.sitkagear.com. Also, thank you to Gun Dog Supply. Gun Dog Supply is your one-stop shop for all of your hunting and training needs for your four-legged hunting partner. As we get into season, make sure you stock up on all the essentials from bumpers to launchers to blanks to poppers to what have you. Whatever you need, make sure you go check out www.gundogsupply.com. Also, thank you to Kent Cartridge. Kent is your go-to option for blanks. As you know, we all know about the great ammunition they have for in the field during the fall. But if you need your blanks during training season, www.kentcartridge has you covered. They're one of the few places actually that you can get them. So make sure if you need blanks, go check out Kent Cartridge. Thank you to Lucky Duck. Lucky Duck is your 5-star crash test rated kennel, both in the intermediate and the large size. So no matter how big or small your hunting partner is, you can be sure that you're traveling as safe as you possibly can with them. We all know they're precious cargo. Let's protect them the best we possibly can. www.luckyduck.com. Last but not least, thank you to Retriever Roadmap. Retriever Roadmap is your premium option for training your own dog at home with a video library with hundreds of videos to walk you through from picking your puppy up all the way through finishing your dog to that advanced level. And right now we have our spring training promotion going on to where you can get into that program for a waived $200. So you don't have to pay the $200 initiation fee to get in. So it's the most affordable that it's ever been. www.retrieverroadmap.com, and make sure you get in there. I think we have a couple weeks left before that spring promotion is done. Well, I hope everybody out there is having a fantastic start to your day, start to your week. I'm excited. I'm excited for today for a number of reasons, mainly because the guest that I have with me here today. But, you know, I mean, there's so many things to be thankful for as far as, you know, the weather is great. We're finally into that spring training time. Just kind of, you know, it's got that vibe, right? It's just like I'm really in the moment right now. I'm really loving it. But I am really excited to introduce to you guys someone who has become very close to me, and all because of the dogs. And you know, got a puppy from us and had the dog in for training. We're gonna get into that story a little bit, but now is officially the newest team member of Riverstone. And so I'm proud and excited to introduce Mr. Zach Stinnett.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So Zach, this is kind of, I guess we can do kind of a big announcement here. Zach is our newest full-time trainer at the kennel. So it'll be really fun to kind of hear his story. And one of the things I'm really interested in is Zach has done a fantastic job with his personal dog, Zeb, training. And there's there's a little bit of a difference, I'd say, between training professionally versus training your own personal dog.
Oh yeah.
And I think in just a few weeks, you've already seen that. So I want to dig into that a little bit and go through that. So anyway, let's kind of hear a little bit about Zach. So as you know, for me, it's a big deal. Like when we bring somebody into our team, it is a big deal that I want to have the right person. And the right person for me, it's not someone that has a dog training background. Like I've said this, Zach, I think probably said this to you. Like we can we can teach someone to train a dog. That doesn't bother me at all. What we can't do is I can't teach you to be a good person. I can't teach you to be a good human being, right? And like that's the first and foremost. And through our relationship that we've been able to have over the last couple of years, there's no doubt in my mind, that you were that, first. But you also have a very natural gift in the handling department. So like when I watch you handle Zeb, when I watch you kind of step in with some of these dogs, you're very natural, in doing that, which certainly helps. Like you're going to excel in this very quickly, because of that. But before we get into the dogs too much, let's talk a little bit about you. Like give us a little bit about you, your background. You have what I think is a fascinating, background as far as what you've done and how you've done it. So give us a little bit of a background. Like who is Zach?
Yeah, so I grew up in southern Missouri. Grew up playing sports, hunted a lot. As I got older, I started rodeo. My older cousin was a big rodeo guy, big bull rider.
Which I didn't know until recently. Yeah. I don't know how I didn't know that, but I didn't know that that you did any kind of rodeoing, let alone what you did, which I'm not going to spoil that. I'm going to let you get into it.
Yeah, so I grew up rodeoing from the time I was 10. I thought I was going to be a bull rider forever. Got scared of that pretty quick. And was athletic enough to...
Because you had a brain.
Yeah. So instead I started fighting bulls, which is probably more dangerous.
I take that back.
Yeah. And for people who don't know what bullfighting is, it's basically the rodeo clown, except I didn't tell any jokes or anything like that. So I started doing that. I got pretty decent at that. I was running around with the best people. And kind of hit the point where I was like, I was fighting bulls. I fought bulls in Vegas when I was 18 at the Bullfighters Only. They had a big event out there. It was the first time they brought back freestyle bullfighting in Las Vegas. And I was like, man, I've kind of done this. I wasn't anywhere near the top or anything like that. I've been average at everything I've done, but I just keep grinding away at it. So I did that, and then I decided I want to join the military. So I stopped fighting bulls, and I was like, I want to be a Navy SEAL. So I went to
time out.
Yep.
Because we're gonna get into a really cool part, but I don't want to skip over.
Okay.
The bullfighting part is pretty cool.
Okay.
So, what was your worst wreck fighting bulls?
So it was actually at my hometown rodeo, Sykeston Pro Rodeo. Freestyle bullfighting. Rex Dunn, which he's passed away now, but he has the meanest fighting bulls on earth. They're like 1,800 pounds. Usually fighting bulls are a little bit smaller, but these guys are huge. They're a crossbred with bucking bulls and Spanish fighting bulls. Here I am, 18 years old, scared to death, call for them out, and they hooked me all night long. And I wouldn't say I really got super injured there, but it was the sorest I've ever been. Couldn't walk the next day. It was tough. I actually ended up winning.
I wasn't injured, but I couldn't walk the next day.
Yeah. Difference between being hurt and injured.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, no super major injuries. I smashed my finger off. I had to get reconstructive surgery on one of my fingers.
Well, let me see. I don't see anything.
The ring finger?
I guess the knuckle looks swollen.
No,
I would have.
It's a tip.
Okay, I never would have known if you didn't say it.
Yeah, I stuck my hand in a buck and shoot. This bull had his head turned, and when I went to try to get his head to spin around, he swung around and cut my finger. I actually almost passed out because of that.
Really?
Yeah.
People don't realize how big and powerful these animals really are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a power like you've never experienced.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So, okay, so how did you even get started in the bulls? Like you said, I think it was your cousin.
Yeah.
Was a bull rider.
Yep.
But what made you want to be on the other side of it, of protecting those guys? Because that's really what you're doing. Like for those people, there's a lot of people that don't know, right? You are there to protect the riders after they get bucked off, because they're in an extremely vulnerable and dangerous situation in that moment. right?
Yep. So actually, how it happened was I wanted to go to a practice pen, and my buddy was going to start fighting bulls, and I was like, "Come on, let me fight with you, or whatever." And he was like, "No, we're not going to let you fight." And I was like, "Come on," you know. And so finally, they were like, "All right, you can come." He ended up sitting on the fence the whole time, and I ended up fighting bulls pretty decent. And they were like, "Dude, you're pretty good. You want to work a youth rodeo?" So I got my first job that day. So I started working a youth rodeo, and they weren't super mean bulls, but there was definitely some mean bulls there. And one thing led to another when it comes to that. And it's like, I was 14 years old, like having to live a big boy life and conversate with people and try to get jobs as a 14, 15-year-old. And then I would go to a lot of other rodeos and have to lie about my age and say that I was 18 so I could participate in them, you know. So that's kind of my story on that.
So, okay, so your parents didn't do this, your family didn't do it.
Yep.
You know, just cousin kind of got you into that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as like when you say mean bull, okay, because this is interesting to me. Okay, so like you watch the PBR. Now, obviously, these bulls are doing this on a very regular basis,
Mm-hmm.
but very few times, like I think everybody thinks of like the bulls of like, all right, they buck the rider off, and then they're like run into the barrel, I want to bunt the barrel, and they want to like go hit somebody. And very few times in that level do you see that very often, right? Most of the time they know where they're going next, and they just exit stage left, right? But that's not often the case when you're talking about PRCAs, right? Pro rodeos, and certainly not amateurs either. Because is it because the bulls haven't had that type of repetition, or like why is that?
I wouldn't say repetition is the right word. I would say it's a level bulls. Like those bulls, just like dogs, racehorses, whatever, they're bred to buck, and they go out there and they buck as hard as they can. They're out. Now, don't get me wrong, there is still some mean bulls there, and some wrecks can happen.
No doubt.
But I think when bullfighters are really doing a good job, you don't even know they're there.
That's a good point.
And so a lot of people miss that, especially those guys at PBR. Like, those are some of the guys that I was running around with. I mean, they do this every single weekend, like multiple times a month. They're always involved. They're so good at reading bulls that they can get in and out without anyone even noticing.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Like, because I didn't even notice that part of it.
Yep.
You know, and the reason I say not even me is like because I'm around it, right? But like, yeah, I got lost in it. So that's really interesting because one thing, we talk about the dog stuff and we're skipping ahead a little bit, but when I say like you're very natural at what you do, like, yeah, you're natural at it, but you've also like reading animals is not a foreign thing to you, right? Like most people that come into this have human interaction outside of maybe there are one or two dogs, right? But the human interaction is very different than reading an animal. And it's the number one thing that we talk about a lot, specifically in Retriever Roadmap. And here, like on the podcast, like I talk about reading animals a lot. But the only way to really do that is to be around it and get a lot of repetition and understanding it, right? So a lot of what I know you and I have talked about specifically the last few weeks is reading the animal, right? Like the cues, the body language, the what to do and how to do it. And then that animal's talking to you the whole time. They're just not verbally talking to you, right? So from a bull standpoint, it's super interesting that you've been reading animals for a long time.
Yeah.
It's just a different animal.
And I think that's interesting because, like, Cody Webster, one of the best guys out there, he's always, like, kind of preached that the best guys in the back pens that are herding bulls, put them in the chutes, working calves up and down the alley, those are the guys that make the best bullfighters because they're back there reading animals. They're understanding what they're thinking before they even make a move, just reading their body language, this and that. And so that was a lot of me learning to fight bulls was just people would stick me in the back pens and I'd have to go work stock. And I just kind of learned to read bulls that way. Now, obviously, it's a little bit different because when they're full speed, there's a guy on top, there's a lot of emotion involved. It changes the way things go. But overall, just reading their body language and stuff back there, I think that makes guys a lot better bullfighters than it does any other things. It's like your best way to practice, I think.
Yeah, it's so relatable to the dog thing.
Yep,
right?
I agree.
Same thing. So did you ever get any bad spots in the back pens?
Nothing off the top of the head. I mean, I've been slamming into gates and stuff like that, but I wouldn't say I've ever been pinned down or anything back there.
Yeah.
I also would get in trouble if I got on the fence back there. So, like, it's always frowned upon to get on the fence as a bullfighter. You know, no one wants to be that guy. But back there,
Is that like I don't like talk about that because I like is it you're wimping out by jumping on the fence?
Basically,
Okay.
basically,
Okay.
and it's a lot more dangerous on the fence. I was at a bullfighting school, Frank Newsom's bullfighting school, and I was there. I wouldn't say I was instructing, but I was just kind of helping out, make sure things ran smoothly. And I was trying to stay out of the way, whatever. And I wanted to get this bull off this guy. So basically, the bull was run towards this guy, and he got in a straight line. A bull's going to outrun you every time you're in a straight line. Anyway, I went and got the bull's attention. He came to me, and like I wasn't trying to fight him, so I just ran up the fence, and he spun around and just hit me with his butt and just smashed my leg against the fence. And it's like, that's why you don't go to the fence. That's a perfect example of why you don't. Because if I would have just stayed and actually made one round, then got out, then I wouldn't have been in that situation. So the fence is trouble all around. Makes you kind of look like a wimp, but also, you know, it can get you in bad trouble.
Gotcha. It's really interesting. It's a big part of you know, when you look at, there's just so many things you can relate to the dogs.
Yeah.
You know, from that. So all right, so we can move on from the bulls, but I think that's fascinating, and then quite frankly, I think it's one of the things that has made it such a natural and easy transition for you coming into the dogs is just that. Yeah, and the thing that's interesting to me about the bulls is, you know, just like a dog, right? So when we talk about reading a dog, like a lot of people are trying to read one dog, right? They're trying to read that one dog, they're trying to understand how that one dog works, how that one dog thinks, how that one dog communicates, just like you were just a few weeks ago, right? And now I'm asking you to do the same thing with, you know, 25 or whatever we have in the kennel right now. And, you know, each one of those dogs is going to communicate differently. Each one of those dogs isn't used to you communicating to them, right?
Yep.
And, you know, again, from the bull standpoint, it wasn't like you were just, you know, running with that same bull over and over. It was a different bull all the time. And so I just think there's so many things there that probably, you know, prepped you for this through that time that.
And it's funny you say that because, like, when you say that, I think about certain bulls that did certain things. And it's the same thing with dog training. You know, certain dogs do this, certain dogs do that. And, that, you know, say a bull always went out there and spun to the right, and then as soon as he'd throw a guy off, he would switch back to the left or whatever. And I won't skip ahead, but that's kind of the stuff that I'm seeing at the kennel or kind of stuff I've seen through dogs.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we'll definitely get to that, but I just think that's like step one of like the fascinating lifestyle that that Zach has led so far. Okay, so you get done with bulls, you want to go to the military. Go.
Yep. So before I get started, I'll say I'm kind of stealing this quote from Clint Bruce, which I'll talk about a little bit, but he said he kind of lived a Forrest Gump lifestyle, and I think that's kind of how I have too. I just put my head down, I look up, and I'm like, oh, I'm fighting bulls, and then put my head down a little bit more. Oh, I'm in the Army. Put my head down a little bit, and oh, here I am.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So I decided I was going to join the Navy, cut all my ties with bullfighting, and that's just kind of the personality that I have, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but, like, I'm all in. So I cut my ties completely with bullfighting. I didn't have any other option but to be in the Navy.
Burn the ships.
Yep, that's right. Burn the ships. So I went to the recruiter, told him everything. Backstory a little bit. When I was 10, I got shot in the eye with a BB gun. I was having a little gunfight in the backyard and got shot in the eye with a BB gun.
Were you intentionally trying to shoot each other?
Started out bird hunting, ended up like a
10-year-old
firefight.
boys.
Yeah. So I poked my head around a tree, got shot in the eye, had to get cataract surgery, lens replacement, the whole thing. So went to the Navy recruiter, and I didn't know any better. I'm an 18-year-old kid. I was like, hey, this is wrong. I broke my arm fighting bulls. I broke my ankle fighting bulls. Been shot in the eye with a BB gun, whatever. And he's like, okay, well, you're permanently disqualified from the military. And I was like, what? He's like, yep, you're permanently disqualified. So
permanently disqualified meaning like you can't join anything, because I know like what you wanted to do was go be a SEAL.
Yep.
Like specifically a SEAL.
Yep.
Was it was just disqualifying you from that, or disqualifying you from the entirety of the military?
From the entirety of the military.
Wow.
So through people that I met fighting bulls and rodeoing and stuff, I had met a guy named Michael Buchanan when I was 18 at a bull riding camp in New Mexico. he became one of my best friends, my mentors. He's like the dad figure and a brother, so he can give me the hard advice, give me the good advice, you know. So his older brother went to high school with a guy whose brother was Navy SEAL. His name's Clint Bruce. He owns a company down in Dallas, Texas called Trident Response Group. So Michael emails him and says, "Hey, this guy's having trouble. You know, he's one of my best friends, having trouble getting into the Navy." And I was like, or Clint messaged him back and was like, "Send him down here." So I lived in Missouri. This place is in Dallas. I leave, drive down to Dallas, and show up. And this was like super intimidating for me. I'm 18 years old, scared to death. I'm in there in like super nice clothes. They show up, they're ready to go. And I'd never even talked to Clint. Michael was there. He had to leave to go to work. So I'm sitting in there by myself. Clint's not there. There really wasn't anyone there, and I'm just sitting in the office. He pulls me in, and he's like, you know, basically gave me a whole speech about service. He's a super awesome guy, super motivational. Anybody should listen to him. So anyway, he just kind of gave me a whole spiel, kind of felt me out, understood my story, told him about my life. And he was like, "All right, we're here to help you. So go downstairs and meet the boys." So I went downstairs and I met guys who were Rangers, guys who were SEALs, guys who were Green Berets, guys who work for three-letter agencies, meaning CIA, DIA, all these different agencies. Scared to death. Go down there and they basically were like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I want to be a Navy SEAL." They were like, "You read too many books and watched too many movies," you know, which is true because at the time, you know, Navy SEALs, you think they're the best ever. So anyway, they put me through some workouts. They really tested me to see if I had what it took. And at first I didn't, I don't think. I think I was immature. I don't think I was mentally tough. And one of the guys down there, Logan, he had a good talk with me. He's like, "Dude, I don't know if you have what it takes." And I was like, "I do." You know, and that was kind of the turning point for me where I was like, "I'm going to do this." And
that conversation specifically.
Yep, that conversation specifically. And I think that changed my life. And after that, tried to go to Navy recruiter again, and the one in Texas, and they disqualified me again.
Same reason.
Obviously, same reason. Yep. So after that, I got close with a guy who was in the Army. He was a Ranger at 2nd Ranger Battalion, and he was like, "Let's go to the Army recruiter. We're gonna lie about everything." I was like, "Cool, let's do it." So I go to the Army recruiter down there in Dallas, and I was like, "I'm the best thing ever. I have nothing wrong with me. I'm in perfect shape. I'll sign up for 20 years today. Let's do it." So I go in there and take the ASVAB, scored high, everything. He went to pull my job out so I could sign the contract or whatever. He's like, "Let's go outside and have a talk." And I was like, "Oh," you know. At this point, I'm so used to people telling me no that it's like, what's the deal now, you know? So we go outside, and he was like, "On the paper, you said you never applied for a military, you know, because you had to fill out a paper, say whatever." Mm-hmm. I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Here's the deal, man. I really want to join, but these are things that I've had trouble with, whatever." He was like, "Well,"
and you're talking specifically about the health with your eye, right?
Yeah, just health stuff. And it's really nothing even that was a factor, but it was just, my vision wasn't even that bad. It was just the liability. The Army or Navy or whoever doesn't really want to take a liability. Mm-hmm. So he was like, "We really got to get you to an eye doctor." So I go back to Clint and those guys at Trident Response Group, and they were like, "We know some eye doctors. We'll get you in, whatever." And me just being me, I didn't want to wait around for that. So I called, this was on like a Monday or something, called back to Missouri to my eye doctor, got an appointment with them, drove back to Missouri that Monday night, 8-hour drive. Tuesday morning, I had an appointment at 9:45. I went in there, and it's crazy I remember that because I know it was 9:45. I showed up. They wrote me a deal that said I was good to go, basically a waiver say I could join the Navy or join the Army. And I emailed it back to him, and I stayed in Missouri. He was like, "Okay, we'll see what we can do." Anyway, week goes by, nothing. 2 weeks goes by, nothing. I'm still in Missouri. So then I go back to Texas, go try to talk to him in person. He's just like, "Oh, we're still waiting, blah, blah, blah." And at this point, I was like kind of getting frustrated. I was kind of getting discouraged a little bit, and I knew a guy back from my hometown who had just joined the Army, and he used a recruiter, and he said he was super good, whatever. And just to give everyone a timeline, this has now been like a year and a half. I'm 19, almost going on 20. So I go to a recruiter back in Missouri, and I was like, hey, man, these are the problems I've had. You know, I've got my eye, I've got my fingers, I got my ankle, whatever. I was like, I really want to join the Army. This is what I want to do. And I'll do anything I can. You know, I've been permanently disqualified, but I really want to do this. And he was like, all right, man, I'll work with you. I was like, cool. So, long story short, they got it to where I could get into the Army, but I couldn't get a Ranger contract. So all I want to do was be in special operations. And I was like, well, I'm not doing that, because I'd been with guys who were special operations, and they're like, you have to go in with a contract or you're going to get stuck in the regular Army, regular Navy, whatever. And I wasn't going to join. I was like, I'm not joining unless I have this contract, because they couldn't give me any incentives because they already had to give me waivers to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And I called Michael, who I kind of leaned on for a lot of this advice and stuff. And he was like, what's the worst that happen? You go do 3 years, get out, you serve your country, do what you want to do. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So joined the Army, went through, that was in 2017. I turned 21 in basic there. And so as I was going through basic and everything, they had Ranger recruiters come around like one time, and I went in there, and I'd already knew a lot of the stuff because I'd worked with these guys for 2 years and knew kind of how things go, timeline-wise, what the selection was like, stuff like that. And they were asking questions, and I was able to answer all the questions, and finally the guy was like, all right, you shut up, you know. And so anyway, thought I'd got the contract, and it was called an Option 40 contract. They were like, okay, you know, sign up if you want the Option 40 contract. If you meet these requirements, you're good to go, which was like a certain score on a PT test, certain ASVAB score, all this stuff, and I met all those requirements. So we graduate basic training. Everybody knows where they're going. I don't know where I'm going. Still up in the air. So I don't know where I'm going. Everyone else in my class knows exactly where they're going. Oh, so-and-so is going to Germany. So-and-so is going to New York. So-and-so is going to Washington. You know, everyone knows what base they're going to. I have no idea. I don't know the unit. I don't know anything. So the guy, my drill sergeant, finally comes up to me and was like, hey, you got your Ranger contract. And that was like the best day ever for me, right? I had worked 2 years to get there. Finally, and I was like, I'm through the struggle. I'm ready to go. So then I go to airborne holdover.
Just one question. Is the reason that you didn't know that you had got, like, where you're going is because you were getting the contract? Like, were you the only one to get the Ranger contract? Or, what took so long?
I don't know. There was a few other guys that had their contract, and they just never told me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just kind of the life the card I've been dealt.
Right.
So I had no idea. And he told me that, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm through the struggle. Let's go. So I get there, or I go to airborne holdover, because you go to airborne school before you go to RASP. So then I had to go get an airborne physical. When I got an airborne physical, you're disqualified. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So at this point, like, I'd made, like, I was confident in talking to the drill sergeants and stuff. Like, I've talked to you about it a little bit, but, like, the 18 to 20-year-old difference in basic training it's like astronomical, the level of maturity. And maybe it's the life that I lived or whatever, but it's a big maturity difference. So I was able to talk to the drill sergeant. I was like, basically, some of my respect went out the window, because I was like, hey, man, this is what I want to do, and I don't know what's causing all this trouble, but, like, I'm ready to do this, and I'm getting all this pushback, and I don't really know what to do, whatever. Anyway, I had a drill sergeant who really helped me out, and anyway, I got my airborne physical approved. And now, like, I'm definitely not thinking that I'm over all the adversity, because they just kept coming. Like, it just kept coming. So I go through airborne school. Airborne school is no problem. Then I go to RASP, and we started with RASP is Ranger Assessment Selection Program. We started with 158, and I think we graduated like 56, something like that. So about 100 people got out between then, and there's a lot of people who just use that contract to go get airborne school, then they'll quit. And at that point, you just go to needs of the Army. Sometimes you go to airborne units, sometimes you don't. But so RAS was really no problem for me. I've said this to you before, but I think all those schools, a lot of Army schools and schools in the military in general, they're a little bit overhyped. I'm not saying that to like knock them down at all, but if you know what you want, they're not hard. For a lot of people, they are hard, but I kind of knew what I was getting into. I kind of knew that I wanted to do this, and so it wasn't that bad. Especially, like, it was harder for someone to tell me no that I couldn't get in than it was to go through RASP and stuff like that. So,
which is really interesting. Like, for me, I've studied the SEALs, and I've studied the Rangers, I've studied these elite teams because it's so interesting to me. And you and I have talked about this too, but the way that I look at it, like, for me to be the best leader that I can, why wouldn't I study what the best teams in the world do and how they operate? And what was interesting to me when you said that, so like when someone's listening to this, right, listening like, like because of your health stuff, like you weren't like, you're a very fit, healthy person. Like we're not talking like someone isn't sitting here across from me that's overweight, unathletic, like you're none of that. And what's interesting to me is like I have met, and this is not a knock on anyone, but I think anyone, I would assume yourself included, will hopefully you'll agree with this. If not, you'll probably punch me in the nose. But like I know a lot of people that are in the military that, I mean, it scares me thinking like, okay, this person, could be like defending our country. Yeah. Like, like not like whether it's intellectually or physically or mentally or like, so to like have someone like yourself not be accepted is kind of mind-boggling to me. Like to me, I'm like, who else would you want? Yeah. Right? Like, mentally strong, extremely determined, physically in shape. Like what else do you want?
And that was a tough pill for me to swallow. Like I was seeing the people that were joining and stuff while I was going to these, MEPS, which is like your military entrance, basically your medical stuff for the military. And I've seen these people that were joining, and I was like, what is going on?
Right.
Like, why can't I get in there, And I like to think that I was pretty competent as far as, like, holding a conversation and stuff like that, trying to get in. And it was, like, it was frustrating. For a long time, I struggled with that. Like, the whole 2 years, I wasn't in a good headspace just because I was so upset that I couldn't do this. Mm-hmm. Because they get people that, just get in for free college or whatever, which is fine. Like, I think that's a great way to go. But, like, I was in there. I was ready to do the hard stuff. I was ready to go. And at that time, I would have signed up for 20. I would have signed up for 40 years, mm-hmm. And if that was the case, I'd still be there because I was that ready to get in. And it didn't work like that.
Right. So, okay, so then and now, correct me if I'm wrong because I've never been there, right? But, like, I'm going to guess that probably the biggest reason why it was so, perceived to be easy for you is because you mentally went into it knowing you were going to get through it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to me, it sounds like you've been through, so much of this mental adversity as far as, like, no. And you had the right people around you, prepping you and preparing you. And, like, how much do you feel like that played a factor into, the mental aspect? Like, when people don't get through it, is it more physical or mental?
It's all mental, in my opinion. Like, obviously, you have to meet the standards, right? There's some people who can't meet the standards. But it's definitely all mental. And that's why, I'm so big on surrounding myself with people who push me mentally, push me physically, to try and be better, because I have no sympathy really anymore for especially then, people who were quitting and stuff like that, because I'd been told no so many times, and then they get there and just quit and give up, and it's like, you make school friends in the Army, right? Like basic training, I was friends with guys, whatever. I'd go to RASP, and they just quit, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you ruin your life, in my opinion, right?
Especially in that moment,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, because there's so much emotion involved in it for me, because a lot of times, like, when it was hard or whatever, which I never, like, people say, oh, you had to think about quitting or whatever, like, I genuinely did not think about quitting ever. And I'm not saying that like I'm a tough guy or whatever, but like I just knew how much went into that, me going there, and there's no way that I could quit. I was thinking about call my dad and tell him that I quit. Like that's just not something that I would do. Or call my mom and be like, oh, well, I couldn't suck it up for 8 weeks, so now I'm done.
Well, I think it's just interesting to me that mental perseverance, because and that's something that like I've heard multiple people specifically, SEAL, training. That's what I've heard. Like when they fail out of buds, it's a mental thing more than a physical. And what's interesting to me too is like when I listen to this stuff or read about this stuff, and people talk about that, the biggest and best and most in shape and the best athletes, and like those aren't the guys that make it. It's the guys that are mentally strong enough to persevere. So I just find that really interesting. Okay, so at this point, then you're a Ranger.
Yep.
Okay, so like you've literally, this has been your like how long at this point from the start of like, all right, I'm done with bulls, I'm gonna join the military, to you're finally a Ranger.
So I quit fighting bulls in 2015, and I was a Ranger. I showed up to battalion March 2018, so 3 years.
Yeah. It's a long 3 years.
Yeah.
Especially being told no, right? So, all right, so you're a Ranger.
Yep. So I show up, and it's full steam ahead. We're on a training cycle. We're getting ready to deploy. I think we deployed in September in 2018. So it's just full steam ahead. You got to play, or you got to keep up with the pace there. They say that Ranger Battalion's the easiest to get into, meaning that it only takes really 8 weeks to get into. It's the hardest to stay in. I've seen people get fired for all kinds of things. I mean, from not performing, not meeting standards, making bad decisions, whatever. Like, it's nothing to get fired out of there. So that's in the back of your mind the whole time. So I was a private. I go through that training cycle, and I deployed for my first deployment. Then in September, it was a 5 or 6 month rotation there to Afghanistan. Come back, go to Ranger School. So Ranger School is a leadership school that anybody in the military can go to. A lot of times that's like a misinterpretation. A lot of times people think Ranger School makes you special operations, and it doesn't. Ranger Battalion, you got to be in Ranger Battalion to be special operations. You just have to go to Ranger School to stay in special operations, to stay in Ranger Battalion. Mm-hmm. So you have to get your tab, which is Ranger School.
Okay, so what extra did you have to do to become Ranger Battalion?
Just RASP.
Just RASP. Okay.
Yep. Okay. RASP is an 8-week thing you do like right after basic training.
Okay.
Essentially. So you go to that, then you go to your unit, basically get some experience, whatever, because once you go to Ranger School, you become a leader in the organization.
Got it. Okay, so there's a difference between being a Ranger and being a special operations
Right,
Ranger.
That's right. Yep.
Okay, so you're a special operations Ranger.
Yep.
At this point.
Yep. So after I go, my first deployment, go to Ranger School at 61 days. There's 3 phases. So I graduate that. I recycled once in Florida, which sucked, but I recycled there, come back, and I took my first leadership role then as a gun team leader, which is basically I was in charge of machine gun. Did another deployment then. Came back from that deployment and started another training cycle. Like for us, it was training cycle deployment, training cycle deployment, training cycle deployment. And so I did another deployment in 2020, and then that's where our story kind of starts. But mm-hmm. I did that last deployment. I was in Afghanistan again. So I had 3 trips to Afghanistan.
What was the longest you were over there?
6 months, that first deployment. It was something weird. Usually it's for special operations do a little less time over there. They don't do like your deployments and stuff because their op tempo so high.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would imagine a lot to do with keeping you mentally sharp because of what you're dealing with.
I would say, yeah. It's just like not so much as I was in. Like we still did missions and stuff, but early on, those guys are going out 2-3 times a day, and the regular Army, they just had different missions, so they shortened up special operations deployment. So
mm-hmm.
to keep guys, like you say, keep guys sharp, keep guys engaged, keep
Right.
guys healthy.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so in here, because I believe that you were actually overseas when you put your deposit down for Zeb.
I was.
Who Zeb is your dog, who is now 3? 2. Okay.
Yep.
So how did that whole thing? Like, how did you find Riverstone in Afghanistan?
Yeah. So how it happened? Basically, I'd missed a couple duck seasons. Like as I was going through everything, I started duck hunting when I was like 12 or 13. I didn't get to go a whole lot when I was younger because it's expensive, and we didn't have a whole lot of money to do it. And as I find out as I get older, it really is expensive.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
So my cousin went. He had a really good spot. He'd take us. We'd go shoot some. He had a good dog, so that always pumped me up. And a couple of my buddies that I was in the Army with, they were duck hunters. And this year, or like that 2020 year, was our first time we were going to be back to duck hunting the past 3 years. And I was like, dude, I'm fixing to be E5. I was fixing to live off base. Basically, mean have my own housing and stuff.
What's E5?
Sergeant.
Okay.
Yep, so I was a sergeant. So I knew I needed to get a dog, or I wanted to get a dog. I didn't need to.
Hey,
Yeah. So I wanted to get a dog. I was like, dude, I really want one to hunt with, whatever. I've always enjoyed seeing them. And I was like, let me just get on here and look. Like, I was making pretty decent money overseas. You know, it's all tax-free and stuff. And so I got on there, and honestly, Riverstone had the best website. And I was like, well, this is pretty cool. So I looked into it more, got on the Instagram, got on YouTube, and I was like, this is who I want to go with. And I can't remember exactly what it was you were talking about, but I'd watch a bunch of videos, and it was just like having the drive, but still being able to chill. Like hang out in the house, but also being full steam ahead. And I was like, that's kind of cool. I'm a single guy. Like, it'd be cool to have a dog that I could hang out with, because I always admired the people who had dogs, like, at barbecues. Like, that was one of the things I thought about, like, getting a dog. I was like, I could have a dog at a barbecue that's well-behaved, and that's what I wanted at the time. So you guys just kind of fit that bill, and I was like, let's hit them up and see. So I emailed Whitney, and we kind of went back and forth, and I filled out the questionnaire, and, like, I couldn't call on the phone, obviously, because I was overseas, so I had no really interaction. Like, I wasn't able to get on the phone or anything besides email. So put the deposit down, and I think it was the timeline you guys give is pretty accurate. And, like, as we were getting...
try.
Yeah, it's real accurate. And as I was getting closer to time, I was like, man, this is crazy. And, like, I got Zeb in May 7th of 2022, and I just moved into my house March of 2022. So, like, the timing-wise worked out perfect. So, anyway,
And you're living in Washington State at the time.
Yep, living in Washington State. So, I come pick up Zeb, and I go back to work and start raising Zeb, start doing the dog life stuff. And and at the time, Retriever Roadmap had just came out, and I think it came out a few months before May of 2022. And I got that when I got Zeb, and I just kind of started following the puppy program. I knew that I was going to send him back in for bird and gun and intermediate for sure, just because my training schedule was so crazy. Like, at that time, I still was thinking that I was going to stay in the Army forever. Deployments kind of slowed down, but we were still training a lot. Like, deployments are down means you're training more, and it's harder, and you're gone away from home, and you're doing these training deployments, you're doing this, you're doing that. So I knew I want to send him back, and so I sent Zeb in for bird and gun, which I think we'll get to that later, but I think that's the best thing ever for a dog. Then sent him to intermediate.
Did he roll right into intermediate from...
No, he did. So he came during the winter. He did bird and gun, then he did obedience and train retrieve.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So when he came back in for intermediate, he was a little bit ahead on that.
That's right.
And so anything that I loved it so much, but I just felt better about you guys training him. You know, like I wanted to have the dog that was the best it could be. And a lot of people say that, like I felt like I was holding back the dog, and that's kind of how I did at the beginning because I didn't know any better. Like, I watch these videos and stuff, and I try to figure it out, which as I understood reading a dog more and understanding how to actually work with a dog, the videos made more sense. It's hard to do it if you don't know anything, but the more I watch videos, the better I got.
So, okay, so you're through, so you get Zeb. One thing I just want to backtrack on. As you're getting the Zeb, so I remember Whitney saying that she remembers that you got on the list via email and said you couldn't talk. But like I think there was something in there, correct me if I'm wrong. In there something in there, like especially you being special ops, like you can't tell people like where you are and what you're doing, right? So I remember Whitney being like, this is really weird.
Yeah.
Right?
I think I just said I was working overseas and I couldn't call her, which is probably a weird, scary thing for someone to text or email over, but that's where I was at, so I couldn't call her or anything, and I wanted to because just a relationship and everything like that, like I wanted to start building that.
Right.
But I really, really did trust everything you guys put into it, like the website and stuff. That's a first impression for me. Like I get on there and I see the website and it's clean. You're able to follow everything. You know exactly where everything is. Like half time you get on websites now and they crash. you know,
Right.
And so it just worked out, and I was like, that's who I want to go with. And she was quick to respond. She was quick to answer any questions I had. And like I said, everything just kind of was checking the block for me.
Yeah. Who knew you'd be investing into your future with all those things? I love it. Okay.
I know.
So let's fast forward a little bit, because I think all that, to me, man, like just to be honest with you, like I'm fascinated with like your life up to this point. I think everything that what you're doing now, like it's not surprising to me that you're doing as well at what you're doing now, training as you are, because mentally, like dude, like I know it's new, but like you've never not had a good day. Like just the other day you came in, your allergies like had you looking like death, but like you're like, man, like a lot worse things I could be doing today. Like your energy and your mindset is always there. And I do truly believe the dogs, pick up and feed on that. The bull stuff, I think is super relatable from the reading of the animals thing. And I just think there's so many things there that have like snowballed into, this moment. I think it's really neat. But I don't want to discount or discredit, like you have done a great job with Zeb. And I know, especially since you picked him up from intermediate, and I appreciate you giving us credit for that. But that dog is a different dog today than what he was when he left intermediate. Like, I mean, he's light years ahead of where he was, right? And we don't see that all the time. If I'm being really honest, we don't see that a lot, right? Most of the time, people send a dog in for training because they don't have the time, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the want, they don't have the property, they don't have all the things to train. As you and I and most people listening know, you're not going to pick up a dog and then stop training with them, right? Because you're either progressing or regressing, right? So what happens is these dogs regress to when we see them come back in, we're like, what happened? For Zeb, it's quite the opposite. Like that dog, you and that dog have done a tremendous job, just with each other progressing to where he is today. So that's kudos to you, for doing that. But you've poured yourself into it, right? That's a big deal. So now let's circle back to now you're working at the kennel, but it took some time with you and I communicating for that to even happen. I mean, when was the first time that you told me that you were interested in working at the kennel?
So I got out of the Army officially in August, and I think we talked in October for the first time.
Yeah. And so how many months ago was that? 6-7 months ago? Something like that?
Something like that.
And you've pinged me probably 3 or 4 times in that time frame.
If not more.
Well, yeah. And I know you kept saying like, man, I'm not trying to bug you. But like what happened was, so if you followed this podcast at all, you know Erin, who we all dearly appreciate at the kennel, took another career path to go pursue something she had a degree in, she was passionate about, and to this day I am still her biggest cheerleader. I think that's absolutely fantastic. But it left a void at the kennel to where, all right, we're going to fill this. But it was through your persistence and repetition of pinging me, so it's at the forefront of my brain because it's not always my strength, that it just made me sit back and say, okay, we can bring somebody else in here. But one, I know we're not going to be able to replace what we just had in Aaron, because there's just not many people that fit that to me. Like, just fit what we're doing, have that mindset, have that energy, have that follow through, have that personality, have everything that she had. And so I'm just like, it's almost like this, like, I'm not at all comparing Aaron to a dog.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be very clear about that, but it's like, when you have that great dog and you get the next one, like, it's not fair to, to compare the new one to what the old one was. Right. And so I was just like, I don't know what we're going to do. Well, then you and I spoke again, and you came to Strike Force in Missouri, which gave me another opportunity to have face-to-face time with you. And man, that to me, like, that's just where I went, all right, we can't replace Aaron, so why try to? Like, I'll pick up some of the administrative type stuff, we'll all kind of split some of that stuff, but like, bringing you in brings, what I believe is the right person into our group, which is my number one, first and foremost. But then two, now we have more hands on deck training wise. That means more repetition. That means more, more everything, which I love. And I think we're all gonna, see a benefit of that, going forward. And I just think, I think this will be a really cool thing, for all of us. But I also think from a client standpoint, like, again, more repetition, more hands on deck. And so, so now we're Riverstone. What was your, like, what were you doing in that meantime? So you get out of the Army, Riverstone.
Yep. So I originally wanted to be a lineman, like a power lineman. And
what in the world made you want to do that?
Well, my cousins do it, and one of my best friends had just gotten into it. And we had kind of talked about it, and I had this grand plan that's what I was going to do, and I thought there was a lot of freedom in it, and I thought it'd be a great time. But it's funny how everything works out for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. But my timeline and everything, just there weren't really jobs open as I was getting out, and I couldn't really postpone getting out. So I got out and I started trimming trees, and that kind of gets you your foot in the door in the union, and you can kind of build up from there, So I got out, and I was working around people who hated showing up for work. They like to sit around and talk, and I just come from special operations unit where guys show up every day and go as hard as they can, and, if you're not on your A game, they're going to let you know about it, and everyone kind of keeps each other in check. And so I was like, dude, I hate this. Like, I actually struggled pretty bad with it, because I was like, if this is what the real world's like, I don't want to be here. Not like kill myself, but like go do something else. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about joining the military again, and I was like, man, I just don't know. Like, I just left. I don't know if I want to go back in or what. So in the meantime, through all that kind of, all that, I got with a guy back home who trained dogs, and I would go out with him and help him on the weekend and just see dogs work and get launchers and stuff like that for Zeb. So I would go reset launchers and go sit out blinds and help him kind of clean up, do things like that, just to kind of be involved, get some good repetitions, have Zeb be around a bunch of dogs, stuff like that. So I learned a lot from him, and then I'd kind of fell in love with it through that. And just through the process of Zeb, and we can talk about that a little bit too, but that's where I really kind of was like, man, maybe there's an opportunity that I can do this with Riverstone, Josh and Whitney. So that's when I emailed you. I think it was email. Mm-hmm. Then we had a phone call, and you're like, yeah, well, you can come guide at the Pheasant Ranch. We'll kind of see. I don't really know what we look like if you could come join the kennel, but why don't you come guide a pheasant hunt, and we'll see how it goes, basically. So I went and guided a pheasant hunt, and I loved it, and then Strike Force happened, and I thought Zeb did pretty good there, which
he did.
Luckily, he performed there. He kind of showed out for me, and then we just kept talking, and that's just, as I get older, like, I'm okay with saying no, but you never told me no for sure. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'm gonna keep going until he's gonna tell me no. Or he's going to tell me yes. And either way, I was fine, but I wasn't okay with not asking and not seeing if it could work out, because I really felt like I had purpose training dogs, I think kind of relate this to the military and everything. I was like, every day these guys are relying on me to give it everything I got. And outside of work, that's what Zeb was doing. He was relying on me to show up every day and give him everything I got. And I was expecting the same thing out of him, and I think that's why we got as far as we did. And then on top of that, like, the reason you guys were in the front of my mind is, like, everything you guys do is trying to be the best you can be. Whether that's doing this podcast, whether that's at the kennel, whether that's Retriever Roadmap, the Pheasant Ranch, whatever, you guys are all in. Like, I'm really seeing the behind the scenes now, and you're all in. It just confirms what I'd already thought. But I was like, these guys are giving everything they got. Maybe I can go and join that team, and I'll be around people who share the same mindset as me. So that's kind of what sold me on this deal. Like, obviously training dogs is a bonus, but if I could be around people who genuinely love their job and love showing up to work every day and giving it everything they got, like, that's what I was after. And that's really, really hard to find. And I mean, the couple weeks that I've been here, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying it.
Well, one, we're enjoying having you here because you fit exactly that on our side. It is hard to find. We have a lot of people that have wanted to do, and to be honest with you, like, I get to a point where it's like people want to come in and, like, they want to quote unquote mentor, or they want to learn, or they want to come observe, or they want to do, and it's like it doesn't work most of the time because people are coming, like, I mean, shoot, the last guy that I let come, like, help and learn, literally, like, came and, like, popped up a lawn chair behind me and just was like a peanut gallery in the back. I'm like, man, like, all you're doing is distracting me from doing my job. Like, there's nothing in here as far as, motivation on your end. So, man, like, so for me, you talked about a little bit here, but so when you're sending these emails, like, and I didn't, like, I wish that, our small business was, bringing in multi-millions a year, and it's not, so, like, I just didn't have space on the team. And so then, when we had the vacancy, with Aaron, that opened it up to where it's like, okay, now we can potentially do something. And the email that really convinced it for me, to let's have this conversation, was you talking about, I wish I had the email up, and, with your permission, I would have read it, but it had something to do with exactly what you'd said there about how, like, you're going, like, I don't want to show up to work with people that are kicking rocks and, like, going through the motions. Like, I come from a high performing team, and that's what I want to be around. And, like, that's what sold me. It was like, okay, like, you're looking to go be exceptional. And the reality is that, media, like, I can't remember, I think it was Nick Saban, that said this in a speech that I heard one time. He's like, mediocre people don't want to be around high achievers, and high achievers don't want to be around mediocre people, right? Because they challenge you. Like, if you're a mediocre person and you are intimidated or say that you don't want to be around high performers, there's an intimidation factor, right? Like I don't want to put any extra work. I want to be around other mediocres that like they keep me, where I want to be, right? They don't challenge me to be better. I want to be around I believe that I'm a high performer. I want to be around other high performers to make me a higher performer, right? Like, we all, like, raise the bar, iron sharpens iron, right? Like, let's all level up together. That's what made me, because I'm very sincere in that I can train a lot of people to train dogs. I can't train people to be great people. And that's what, like, to me, I was like, okay, like, Zach Scott's out. And at the time, we had a very limited one-on-one time. Like, just really when you came to pick up Zeb, right? Because, like, for you and your schedule, like, you didn't have the luxury of having, like, numerous check-in times and spending a bunch of time here at the kennel, right? So it was very limited in, the time that we got to spend together. And so, man, I just think I just firmly believe everything happens for a reason.
I agree. And timeline-wise, like, it couldn't have worked any better, right? Like, we're 2 weeks in, and like, just everything, it's so funny, the people you meet and the things you get to do, it's everything just lines up, and this is just all led to here. And I don't think that, like, not that I've been super successful in everything I've done, like, I've obviously had a lot of adversity and stuff, but I think everything has just put me in position for the next spot. Like, I think the reason that I was successful in the military is because I'd fought bulls and I was able to slow down things and think about things that were going on. And I think that hopefully I'll be successful in this because of the past experiences I've had, whether that's reading animals or being in chaotic situations, and I'm able to slow down and think about things. And obviously there's differences in all that, but I've tried to combine everything that I've learned up to this point and try to make myself the best version I can be.
I love that. So, tell me a little bit about, so you've been 2 weeks now
Yep.
at the kennel, and there's a lot of things that, although I've tried to make it not feel like this, you're probably, at least to an extent, trying, feeling like you're trying to drink out of a fire hose a little bit. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. Like you're jumping, like we're in the middle of our intermediate class, our first one of the year. So like you don't have the luxury of like starting at the beginning and easing into it. Like it's kind of like trial by fire. Like you got to jump in here and
Yep.
get your hands dirty. What's been eye opening or interesting to you as you've gone through this so far in the first couple weeks?
I think as far as handler perspective, I think just the different levels of dogs you see, and personality wise, most of the dogs now that are all in the intermediate class, they're all pretty much same level. There's some that are a few days apart or whatever, but like all I'd really had my hands on is Zeb and a handful of others, not very many at all. And then I come here and like I'm doing obedience, and every single dog you pull out of the kennel is different. And if I'm not reading the dog and I'm not doing things to make him successful, and if I just treated him like Zeb, they probably wouldn't heal. They probably wouldn't sit. They probably wouldn't come when I called them. But it's so crazy to me. Like I've had my hands on more dogs in the past 2 weeks than I have my whole life.
Right.
And if, like I said, if you're not on point with them dogs and figure out exactly what needs to happen with them, then that's definitely the eye-opening part for me so far. I mean, there's so much behind the scenes that you don't know about. I thought I had a decent idea of what it would be like, but I had no idea. Like there's a lot that goes into this, and you and Whitney do a great job. Like just give you a shout out there. You guys do a great job, and you handle a lot of things that, like we were talking about the other day. I've always heard you say you don't have time to train your dogs during work and stuff, and I get here and I see that because, like, for instance, I did obedience all morning, and we haven't even trained our dogs today, and we're probably going to do that after work hours after we get through everything else because there's so much to do.
Right.
I think I've probably worked 10 or 12 hours a day since I got here just because there's so much I feel like that needs to be done,
Right.
you know?
Right. Well, and yeah, I've said that a lot, especially on this podcast, of that it's that is what makes it difficult, is especially for myself, like, and this is where this is where, okay, so to me, I'll kind of take a little bit of a roundabout. So like I've had, in the last 10 days, I've had 18 people reach out and be like, man, can I come watch you train your dogs? Man, I'd love to say yes. I really would. But one, that's a lot of people to try to fit in, and that's just in the last 18 days. And then two, like, I don't know, like my dogs are the back burner. They're the last dogs to get to work. And if somebody doesn't get work that day, it's my dogs, right? So, and you've got to see that now, and, you might be sitting there being like, gosh, like, like this is what you do for a living. How don't you have time? And like, what haven't we had come up, right?
Yeah.
Weather, we've had appointments, we've had people just drive down the driveway and be like, hey, I just, thought I'd stop by, and then you have like, my goodness, it's just like one of those things. And like, you think you have the day planned out, and there's a wrench that gets thrown into it really, really quickly.
Yep. And that goes, like, I think that's a sacrifice that you have been willing to make, because before I started, I don't know if you remember me saying this or you saying this, but I know you do, but you want to give the clients a premium experience. And you guys do that. And like, hopefully I'm a part of the team now, and I'm doing that as well. But when someone's here, they're getting the full attention. And there's no training going on. All hands on deck, making sure these people are taking care of the best they can. And I'm in there now. I'm learning how you guys operate. I'm learning how you guys talk to people. I'm learning how you guys represent the company, yourself. And you really are giving that premium experience to everybody. And I think that's something that it's hard to understand over the podcast. It's hard to understand over social media or whatever. But the people who have came in, like, they leave happy. They leave better than they did when they showed up. You know, even though they're leaving their dog behind, building that relationship that you guys have with the clients, or now that I'm building with the clients that have came in, it's a really good thing. It really is.
Yeah, well, thank you, because that's been what's interesting is that there's a lot of the guys that, I mean, I love deeply because of what they've done for me in my past, being mentors and, business figures in my life. There's a lot of dog people out there that are not good people, right? They're talented with the dog, but not necessarily with the people. And then you have vice versa, right? You have the people that come in and they can put on the face, they can put on the show, but they're not good with the dog side of it. And, to bridge that gap and try to be the best you possibly can be in both aspects, that's an intentional effort. And then, to your point, like, why have we been doing 12-hour days? Well, because when a client comes and spends 2-3 hours and we're with them the entire time and they leave, well, every other client still expects that we get the work done with their dog, right? So then it's like, okay, now it's back to work. And that's what I think, that's why it's so important for us to have such a great team atmosphere, is because if you have the wrong person or you have the wrong mindset or the wrong energy, man, you can get drugged down really quick doing that. That repetitiveness and that kind of a grind for the next, 5 months, it's a big deal. And so what I've loved about what you've brought to the table is just that disciplined energy, right? What I mean by that is like if I'm like, hey, we're starting at this time, you're always there early. You're always in a good attitude. You always are front and center. You're always like, it's one of those things that, again, like a lot of people I think have the aspiration, to do when they see this kind of stuff, but very few have the discipline to keep that energy and hold that energy. And then for you too, like, if it feels like, because of maybe this is the lineman stuff, the stuff that like, you're like, I didn't love that, but it seems like you really love being around all this stuff.
Yeah. And it's something that, like I told you this before too, is I don't take this lightly at all. Like, not only is my name attached to it, but your name's attached to it, Whitney's name's attached to it, Dave's name attached to it. Mm-hmm. And the clients are looking for the best thing we got. And then when I show up in the morning, I'm like, I think of every dog as if there was Zeb. Mm-hmm. Like, I need to go in there before I started. I have to give this dog everything I have, whether that's for 15 minutes, for an hour, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever. I have to give this dog everything I have. So there's no distractions, nothing. Like, I'm in there giving it everything I have. And that's, like I said, it's just something that I don't take lightly. There's a lot riding on it, and I want to give it everything I have.
Well, and again, going back to your Ranger days of, look, when I'm in special operations, everybody's all in the whole time. Man, like, that's what I think is so impactful about that, is that when somebody drops a dog off at a trainer, the reality is, and I'm sure if you are listening, you've dropped your dog off there, you can relate to this, but this is the truth. When you drop your dog off at any facility and you drive out of that driveway, you have no idea what goes on with that dog from there forward. I mean, we have had horror stories we've had to fix, between dogs just simply not getting worked, dogs not, not being taken care of, you don't know. So there's a lot of trust. And so, again, having that type of energy coming in here, I'm going to be all in, undivided attention. We're going to go above and beyond. We're going to, every day. It's a special thing, man. It really is.
Yeah.
And that's something that we deeply care about. So now, okay, let's shift a little bit, okay, because you have a new journey, like a new journey. So you have the new journey of the kennel. Now you have a new journey of a little black ball of fur that you have. So, who I believe is unnamed. Okay.
We're open to name recommendations here.
Well, so we had a solo puppy. Is a solo Emma, and just due to a circumstance had somebody back out of this puppy. Now, why wasn't this puppy placed when they have a waiting list? Mainly because the solo puppies so far have been absolute fire breathers, like mega motor, like I'm like secretly laughing in my head because I'm thinking about, like, some guys are probably listening to this, like Greg or like Braxton or like some of these guys that have solo puppies. They're probably laughing, going, yeah, they're fire breathers, all right. But they've been absolute fire breathers. So we can't just place this puppy with anybody. Like just anybody that wanted a black male, like this is not the right fit for a lot of people. It's the right fit for you. This is what you wanted.
Yeah.
You wanted a fire breather.
Yeah.
So give us a little background on that, for like what you were looking for, and then two, like I'd love to know the little, because like with Zeb only being 2, it's not that long ago. But a lot of people get new dogs at 5, 7, 10. And there's so many things you forget about from that puppy stage, in that time. So, first give me a little background of what led you to even wanting to have this puppy in the first place.
So, Zeb is I think Zeb is like exactly what you guys breed for. And, we heard Greg talk about it in 2 episodes ago. If I would have had a fire breather at the beginning, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here on the podcast, But Zeb is like the perfect thing. He's a Brock Daphne puppy, and his off switch is the best as it can get. He'll go in the house, he lays down, he's cool. I can take him anywhere, do anything with him, but he's a gamer. When like everyone who saw him at the Pheasant Ranch, everyone who saw him in St. Louis, like he's gonna go perform. He has a big motor. He runs hard. He runs fast. Super natural. Really good marker. But he's been hard to train sometimes. But I think that's made me a better handler. Made him a better dog because of that. It's always been, and I would say 99% of it's my fault because I wasn't sure how to go about it in a lot of ways. But
he's taught you a lot, I'm sure.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, he taught me so much. And there was a point when he was probably 4 or 5 months where just being a puppy, like he ran out in the road. I mean, no cars were around, but he was like running away from me and all this stuff. And I was like frustrated. I was in the red. And I was like, what am I doing? Like here I have a 4-month-old puppy who's just having fun. He doesn't know any better. And at that point, that's when I was like, okay, take a chill pill.
Yeah.
He's a puppy. Let's relax. Let's take our time. And I think that was right around the time, I don't remember which episode it was, but you were talking about, like, I think it was expectations with a young dog or something like that. Like, I was expecting too much out of this 4-month-old puppy. And I was like, man, I just really need to slow down. Oh, you were talking about you can't screw up a dog by going too slow. And once that happened, I was like, I'm in no rush. Let's slow down and enjoy it. So everything I've done has been so slow. His whole process was slow. Anytime he would come back into the kennel for training, I would try to have him better than when I got him back. Like when he left for bird and gun, or when he did the train retrieve and obedience and came back, I tried to get him basically so he could fly through intermediate. And then when I got him back from intermediate, I had all intentions to send him back for advanced. And it was during the hunting season. Zeb had kind of I said it in Retriever Roadmap, he was like, he had a red shirt season, but it was the type of season where, like, if you're up 49-0 in the fourth quarter, he would get to
throw
go.
him in.
Yeah. Basically, like, if a bird came in, a single, we shot him, it fell 20 yards in the decoys, I'd send him. And over time, I would start sending him more and stuff once I realized he was cool, calm, and under control. But I wasn't in a rush through the whole thing. And that's what I also think is a little bit different about working at the kennel, because there is a timeline. And that's why, like I said, not taking it lightly is like, I have to show up and get this done or someone's not going to be happy, right?
Right.
So with him, I was able to take my time and really go through the steps slow. And that's the reason he is the dog he is. But there was time when he didn't want to do stuff. Like I was trying to force it on him too much. I was trying to throw too many retrieves. He didn't want to do it. He just kind of burned out. And that was just him being my only dog, wanting to give it everything I got. And it would just burn him out. And I was like, man, I really have to slow down and calm down. And that's why, like, now I have this little puppy who's no name. Right. But I haven't done, like, I play with him. I'm going to let him kind of be a little firecracker. I want him to be bold and confident. So I'm not going to put any rules on it too early. I'm going to get on some kind of structure as he gets a little bit older, but right now I want him to be a puppy. I want him to be confident. I don't want to reel him back in too soon,
Yeah, and I think it's great. It'll be fun to watch because obviously I'll get a front row seat to watching this now, right? So it'll be fun to watch the puppy develop with you and what he turns into. And what's one of the things that you forgot about? Like, what's something that you forgot about with the puppy phase? Now, you've only had him for 2 nights.
Yeah, 2
right,
nights.
right, and it sounds like he's been great over the 2 nights. So you got lucky there. But Whitney wouldn't say you got lucky. Whitney would say that that's good breeder desensitization.
That's right. That's right.
But what's something so far that you like? Is there anything that hits you? It's like, gosh, I forgot about this.
Man, really nothing off the top of my head. Zeb, like you said earlier, Zeb really wasn't that far off like 2 years ago. But the puppies you guys breed they're calm from the beginning stages. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just saying that because I work here now or whatever, but like Zeb was the best puppy ever. Mm-hmm. He never barked. I bet I've heard him bark 5 times his whole life, and he's 2 years old. Mm-hmm. And that was because I came in fast and scared him or something, you know. But this one's the same way. Like, he's quiet. He's a little biter. I forgot about all the puppy biting.
Yeah.
The sharp teeth. Forgot about the sharp teeth. But no, man, he's actually been pretty good. I really don't have much to say on that.
Good. Well, it's just funny.
I'm sure it'll change in a few days, but far so good.
Yeah, right. I just always find it interesting of how, you know, our brains have this interesting method of operations to where, like, it seems to, you know, like, repress the negative and then glorify the great things, right? Because, like, you ever talk to somebody at 12 years old when they put their dog down, and I mean, very rarely does someone not say, she was the absolute best dog in the world. Well, she didn't come out of the box that way. That's right. Like, years, 8 through 12, were probably the best because that dog was so in tune with you and so in tune with your lifestyle and so in tune, and you were so in tune with her, like, whether you realize it or not, you changed and adapted in ways, to fit her as well. And I think when people look at that, they struggle remembering that. Like, it didn't start off that way. You forget about all the road bumps and all the hurdles, and quite frankly, from a kennel side of things, it is very difficult to manage that expectation. Because how many times? I mean, you've already heard it from clients. They come in, they drop a dog off. Well, like, my last dog was just so great. If this dog could be anything like that, like, this dog is probably going to be better, right? Like, just generally speaking, because that first dog teaches you something, that second dog teaches you more, and then if you're a good handler or owner, you apply it, and then naturally the dogs get better. But it also is unfair to that puppy. It's unfair, for you to be comparing, 12 weeks to 12 years, right? Very, very unfair. And so it's just interesting to me that I like asking that question, because there's so many things that I think we forget about, during that process. But I love to stay in touch, even on the podcast here, and just like, periodically kind of check in and see how stuff's going.
Yeah.
With that puppy for sure. And then, from that training side, man, I think you're going to have a fun summer ahead of you, for sure. But I'd love to say, kind of bring you in every now and then and kind of give updates of like, all right, so like, tell us now, like, what do you think? Like, unfiltered, just like, what's it been like? And Dave and I have, we've done this for so long now that I feel like we kind of get lulled to sleep sometimes, like, and don't like maybe appreciate some of the things that you've already talked about appreciating, and the new energy and that, enlightenment. I mean, it kind of wakes us up a little bit, hits us a little bit. It's like, gosh, that is great. That is awesome. And so it's a great energy for us to have around too. And, man, I'm looking forward to it. I can't say enough great things about you. I'm incredibly proud to have you as a part of this team. And I think you're going to be a great part of it for, a long time to come. So a lot of great things, on this end too.
I appreciate it, man.
So
really do.
All right, man. So we're going to wrap up so we can get back and we can keep training. Yeah. we have a lot of dogs yet to do today. So anyway, we'll stay in touch with you. But man, thank you for sharing your story. I know that's a lot to kind of go over and talk about. But I just, man, I really kind of get wrapped up with everything you've done in the past. I just think is not only interesting, but it's interesting to me how it intersects and kind of like entangles itself to where you're at today, of like all the things you've done, what it's prepared you for, for what you're doing now. Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
I appreciate it. Before I came, I really sit down and reflected on the things that I've got to do. And I'm 27, and all those things obviously have happened before now. And it is pretty cool, like, not to brag on myself or whatever, but I've done quite a bit to be 27, and I'm pretty proud of that. It's something that I'll be proud to share to my kids and things like that. I'm super excited for this journey. I'm excited to see where things go from here.
Well, I think I speak for all of us when, I thank you for your service. Let me tell you, like, real quick. Okay, so one, to finish my thought, thank you for your service. And I think we would all echo that. But you said something last night I want to just touch on, because like I've never heard somebody say it. So we went to dinner with a friend of mine, and he found out that you're military, and you said, and he said thank you for your service, and you said back, what?
Thanks for being worth it.
I've never heard somebody say that. I think that was so cool. Like, it literally, like, it was like goosebump chill thing of like, I've never thought of it, the other way around. And I think, I've never been in your shoes, right? So like, naturally, I don't look at it from your angle. I've always looked at it from my angle of like, I want to say thank you. Like, I am the guy that if I see somebody in uniform or see somebody, like, I do say thank you and try to shake their hand, and like, I do want them to know that I appreciate it, tremendously. But I've never looked at it from your side of like, that's a pretty impactful, statement. So I don't know where you got it, but it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's so easy when people just say thank you for your service, oh, thank you, whatever. But when people actually genuinely mean it and stuff, I'm like, all right, well, I appreciate you, appreciate me,
Yeah, it's a cool thing, man. Yeah. And I think it just speaks more to your character and who you are too. Just goes back to that good human being standpoint. So anyway, I think it's great, man. I think it's been, you've certainly had a lot of experience up to this point, and hopefully this is just going to give you one more of those things to talk about with your kids as you fast forward the clock going forward. So awesome. Well, let's get wrapped up so we can get back to work. But I appreciate you taking the time, dude.
Appreciate it.
All right, dude. We'll talk with you later.
Peace.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes, and a special thank you to DUK, because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.